Hello. The more we know about foods and techniques of eating, the better the health is likely to be. We'll be talking about a number of principles that have to do with these health-giving processes, so we hope you'll join us.
The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented. Welcome to Help Yourself to Health with Dr. Agatha Thrash of Uchee Pines Institute. And now, here's your host, Dr. Thrash.
There are things about eating and even not eating that can be health-giving. As those who are in charge of the most marvelous piece of equipment on this planet, we need to learn as much as we possibly can about these techniques and about these processes. Physiologic law is that thing that can guide our health, so that good health is usually not just an accident. We usually are in good health because we plan to be in good health. And so today, we'd like to talk with you about some of these wonderful health principles that if you follow them and you plan to have good health, you can have the best health that you possibly can with this most marvelous piece of equipment. Now, I've asked Cal Thrash to join me. Welcome. I'm glad you are with us today because I want you to talk about the subject of fasting. In our family, we have from time to time promoted that family members fast for one reason or other. Would you like to say something about your experience or your knowledge about fasting and why it's beneficial?
Well, fasting can strike terror into most people's hearts here in the United States.
I think about it with a good bit of dread, and yet when I get into it, it doesn't bother me that much.
It shouldn't really, because fasting can actually do some pretty good things. It can help us to detoxify. It can also clear a good little bit of fluid from our bodies and help us to have some much-needed rest in our digestive system.
It can also make you lose a few pounds, too, if you tend to be a little bit corpulent.
Certainly can help you go that direction. Most people won't find any problem with fasting for a few days even, if they don't have some serious medical condition that they have to worry about. But my own personal experience, recently I did a little bit of fasting, and I went into it thinking that I was going to be having some real trouble. But in actual fact, it wasn't too bad. Certainly after the first day or so.
How many days did you fast altogether?
I fasted 4 days total, which doesn't seem like too much probably, but when you consider that that was about 6 meals, it was plenty, but certainly not too bad after the first few hours. The hunger started to go away.
When I was about your age, I had a 5-day fast, and I remember very well that after about the beginning of the 3rd day, I didn't have any more hunger. I could see that food looked nice, but I could look at food that I could never resist before, and I could resist it. Did you have that experience?
It certainly was my experience. Now, I have to say that probably those who are having trouble eating a good diet, you won't have too much trouble after you've skipped several meals in a row. Pretty soon you're ready to eat pretty much whatever is put before you, and if it's healthful food, you can stand to eat that, even though perhaps you weren't able to before.
Now, you mentioned that it can be a cleansing thing for us. The liver is cleansed, the intestinal tract is cleansed. What about other organs of the body, like skin? Have you ever noticed anybody's skin clearing up when they're on a fast?
Personal experience has been that many times skin problems and even allergy problems will clear up almost miraculously with just a little bit of fasting. It doesn't even have to be a complete fast. Somebody could fast with leaving off a meal or two, or perhaps go on a juice fast, just drink tomato juice if they're not sensitive to that, or whatever it may be. They can go on, skip a meal or maybe 2, and experience some wonderful benefits with allergies even clearing up.
Now,
symptoms.
I understand that you have a student, or you had a student recently, who was having a big problem with acne, and especially acne on her neck, and she would wear Band-Aids on her neck to cover her pimples, and she went on a fast. Did she get cleared up with
I
that?
believe totally cleared up, in fact. Yes.
And that's what I heard, that she was pretty much clear when she got through with, and she didn't have a full fast. She
correct.
had a juice fast, wasn't it?
That's right, juice fast, which was juicing. She actually did the juicing herself. Now, I don't believe that you have to do that, but certainly it's the nicest thing to have fresh juiced vegetable juice or even fruit juice that you put through the juicer yourself.
Mm-hmm. What made you think that it was possible to even do that? Anything scientific or inspired that might make a person think that it was all right to fast? Just leave off food for a few days?
Well, I've heard several doctors say that it certainly wouldn't hurt us to fast for several meals.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, probably wouldn't hurt most people, most Americans, to fast for a day or even two, pretty much every week. Now, I can hear people out there saying, I don't know if I could fast a whole day every single week. If you get into the routine, pretty soon your body gets to the place where you realize that the fast is coming and you prepare for it, and actually it's not too bad. Now, I wouldn't climb Mount Everest on that day, but probably it will be something that you will get used to and actually begin to get to the place where you enjoy having that time off, and you certainly can use the extra time to do other things.
What adjustments do you think a person ought to make in their daily schedule on their fast day? Let's say they decide to do 1 or 2 days of fasting every week. What adjustments, if any, would you say they should make?
Probably would be good to schedule any heavy activity on some other day, especially toward the end of the day. You might be running out of steam a little bit on the fast day, but it's not actually too bad. If you've had pretty good meals up until that time, you shouldn't have too much trouble.
I had a colleague one time who was greatly overweight, and his doctor told him that if he didn't lose weight, he was going to have a heart attack and die. So he was a fellow pathologist, and he took that advice very seriously. And his wife told me that he fasted for 89 days. Oh, now he was he took certain minerals and certain vitamins, but he didn't eat any food for almost 3 months. And I thought, how could a person possibly fast that long? So one day when I saw him at a medical meeting, I asked him about that. He said, yes, I fasted from something like September to maybe New Year's, or forgotten now exactly his dates, but the only thing he ate was a tiny bit of stuffed celery at some kind of Thanksgiving meal that everybody went to, and just that was all he ate for that long. What do you think of such a prolonged fast?
Well, I don't know. That's the first time I've heard of someone fasting quite that long, I believe. But I think that probably most of us Americans are stuffed in various ways that we could probably stand to get rid of. You stop and think about when we celebrate anything, an anniversary, a birthday, Thanksgiving, just about any kind of holiday, what do?
Yeah.
We go someplace to eat.
Someplace
And usually to eat too much, too much food and too rich of kind of varieties and so forth. So it certainly wouldn't hurt us to back off on what we're eating, even on a daily basis, at each meal, each portion. And you could consider that to be somewhat of a fast by itself. Just leaving off 1 meal a day. If you eat 3 meals a day, then go to 2, and that would be a fast of sorts. I don't know about the long extended fasts.
Well, to tell you frankly, I don't know either. I don't know about those, and I think that probably it is not the wise thing. A short fast, say 5 days, I can freely endorse that for people who do not have either diabetes type 1 or gout, either one of those types of diseases. These people should not fast, because the gout person is likely to spill more uric acid in the urine, form some uric acid stones, or get deposits in arteries or joints or muscles, and that would not be good. And for the type 1 diabetic, they may become acidotic and even land in the hospital with a fast.
That's right.
So they should not be fasted.
That's good.
Well, thank you very much for highlighting this thing of fasting.
My pleasure.
And it's an interesting thing that when we talk about eating, we should also talk about fasting. But I have some more things that I'd like for you to learn about eating, and I've asked Rhonda Clark if she will join me in presenting some of these things. This is Rhonda Clark, who is one of my colleagues at UT Pines and does teaching there, counseling, patient counseling and telephone counseling, and you wear a number of hats.
Yes.
We're very appreciative of your work there for us.
Thank you.
And I'd like to know, you have a number of props
Yes.
here, and I'd like to know what you're planning to tell us about today.
Well, I wanted to talk today a little bit about portion sizes and how to know if the portion sizes that we're eating are healthful. Even if we're taking a healthy diet, if we're overeating, we can interfere with proper digestion and gain weight, even if we're eating just the best possible diet. So I wanted to let you know, one wonderful tool I learned from a nutritionist a long time ago is that with us, we always have our hand, the ability to measure portions and gauge whether or not the items that we're eating fit with the portion size we know to be appropriate. Your fist, a loosely made fist, represents about 1 cup, or would also represent, for example, about 8 ounces of a potato or an apple. And I
So you mean all of this much of your hand
Yeah.
represents about 1 cup.
And I brought an example with me of a potato that's, fairly close in size to my fist. This would represent an appropriate serving size. It's a little bit bigger, but appropriate serving size of a baked potato.
So if a person had a smaller hand, it would be they would have a
Maybe
smaller,
yeah.
smaller size
A
serving size.
child's serving size, of course, is smaller. A large
A
man,
big man would
they need
have
a little
big-
bigger size. So that's a helpful tip. Also on our hand, from the first joint of our thumb down to the tip of our thumb, this represents about a tablespoon, or about how much you would want to use of a salad dressing, for example. Maybe a spread on your bread would represent about that much, however large your thumb is.
So a person with a big thumb might be able to take
Yes.
and tolerate quite well in the body,
A larger,
but still about that much volume.
about that much volume.
That's a good
Tip.
little tool.
And then on our index finger, another first joint to the tip of the finger. This is a little smaller, and in most people represents about what a teaspoon would represent. So this might represent, again, if you're using a nut butter or a more concentrated spread, the appropriate portion size to use. Now, for many vegetables and fruits, we're told portion sizes by nutritionists. A nutritionist might give you a list of appropriate portion sizes and tell you, a portion of fruit, for example, is a medium-sized piece of fruit. And then you go to the market and you have, this apple and this apple, and oh boy, which one is a medium-sized piece of fruit? I really like the look of this apple. It is fine to take the bigger apple. While this would more likely fit, in your palm and represent the serving size, a medium-sized piece of fruit, we are encouraged to increase the number of fruits and vegetables in our diet. And so this apple, while it might represent 1.5 servings of fruit, that's fine if you're taking into account the fact that this is a little more than a, quote, serving size of fruit. Now, one of my favorite foods, especially for breakfast, is cereal. I love cereal. And I brought with me today a cereal bowl. If I were, really hungry and it's breakfast time, I would probably fill this cereal bowl a third to a half of the way full of cereal, most likely, before I put some soy milk on it to enjoy. But we need to be sure we read, if we're using packaged cereals, especially granolas, cereals a little more concentrated, what the appropriate serving size is for this. Today I brought with me a generic whole grain cereal. And as we read the label, we see the serving size for this cereal is 1/2 cup. Well, 1/2 cup is really a rather small amount of cereal. And when
Yes,
I pour
it is.
that into my cereal bowl, well, I might feel a little bit deprived. I'm not sure. Let's see how this looks. I'm measuring out. Yeah, I've got my half a cup of cereal and, well,
That's disappointing.
that is very disappointing. And this brings out the point that our dishware can help us or hurt us when we're learning about appropriate portion sizes. Instead of using a large cereal bowl like this, you may wish to use your half cup of cereal in a cereal bowl more like this.
And that gives
So
room
that-
also for something chopped up in it.
Yes.
Like an apple or a banana.
Of course. Still have plenty of room for the fruit, but it doesn't look quite so disappointing in a smaller bowl. I also brought with me today an example of 2 different serving plates. And it's not uncommon nowadays to see serving plates that are quite large, very large. And when you set your potato on this plate, well, it looks a little pitiful. You feel like you need more room, more things to fill the plate. Really, a more appropriate size may be something more like this.
Yes,
And
this is what we might consider to be a breakfast plate.
Yes.
But it really would be good for a dinner plate as well.
Indeed.
And
with-
that's more like a platter, a serving platter.
Indeed.
For the family.
And if people are used to eating in restaurants, their idea of portion sizes will be a little distorted. Restaurants tend to serve greatly enlarged portion sizes. I mentioned labels, and I want to call out just something important. This is a little bit different than portion sizes. With portion sizes, we do have to read labels very carefully if we're looking to see the nutritional value of foods. This package of pasta, for example, how many people would you suspect this is supposed to feed?
Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5?
This is supposed to feed, according to its label, 8 people.
8 people.
This is just a handful of pasta. You know, I could see where this might even feed 3 people if they're hungry and working outdoors. And yet, if you're looking to see how many grams of fat am I getting, how many grams of salt, milligrams of salt am I getting, look at the portion size as well when you're reading the labels. Nutritionists, nutritional labels, I would rather say, can be very deceptive. In this age where foods are marketed to appeal to health reasons, like you'll see things, no cholesterol, no trans fats, it's still very important to read the ingredients label. Not all foods that are labeled with many lovely healthy messages, like we found a little snack food here, no cholesterol, dairy-free, no additives, vegan, wheat-free, no preservatives. Doesn't this look wonderful?
All natural,
All
I see it.
natural, cashew crunch.
Yes.
It sounds delicious. And actually, I think some of us have sampled it, and it is delicious. But a serving size is 7 pieces. And let me show you the size of 1 piece. This is 1 piece.
Now that's
Like a little piece of popcorn.
one serving is 7 pieces.
7 pieces. Almost 200 calories, 12 grams of fat.
Now let's see, 7 pieces. Let's see how much that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's not very
That's a
much.
handful.
Yeah.
But I know people, I myself, if I enjoy a snack, this might be more just
That's
the beginning of the...
one snack,
Yes.
and with the intention of eating about 3 or 4 snacks.
Some food manufacturers will provide a small serving size on the label. This then, as you read the nutritional label, you'll say, well, this only has 1 gram of fat, or this has very little sodium. Always look at the serving size. Sometimes packaged candy bars, for example, will have nutritional information on. You think, well, that's not so bad, but it represents 2.5 servings, or something very unusual when you know you will eat the whole candy bar. This gives food manufacturers also the opportunity to put labels like no trans fat. If an ingredient if the article of fat is less than 1 gram of fat per serving, then they can say it has no trans fats. If you read on the label and partially hydrogenated fats are still in the ingredients list, you can guarantee that you will get trans fats in that product, even if it's labeled on the front, no trans fats. So
Now,
just some precautions.
I have seen some labeled negligible quantities of fat or negligible quantities of trans fats. I assume now with what you have said that this means per serving, negligible amounts?
Per serving. And
but a serving is usually not what one would consider to be an adequate quantity for a meal.
Frequently not. Frequently not. So always look at the ingredient list carefully. Don't choose products that have any amount of something harmful. Trans fats, partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated oils really should be completely eliminated from the diet. They're very harmful, carcinogenic in fact. And so even if you see no trans fat all across the box of crackers, if it says partially hydrogenated oils in the ingredients list,
you can know that you're going to be getting some.
Yes.
You may not be getting a lot per their size serving, but if you're going to eat a reasonable quantity, it's going to be more.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the research that you've done on this and how you have let us know how much a trans fat might be in a serving.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now we can see that we need to become label readers and we need to be knowledgeable about labeling practices. I have asked Dr. Don Miller if he would join me in another aspect of talking about this matter of foods. I'm constantly amazed at the leeway that manufacturers and people who serve can take with the foods that we eat. Dr. Miller, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And tell me what you're planning for us for today.
Okay, well, yeah, this thing about food portions has always been interesting to me. We had a young man come to UT Pines quite a few years ago, and he was stumbling over this idea, how much am I supposed to eat? And so he had gone to the Bible and see, what does the Bible say? And he found here in Exodus, the 16th chapter, this thing called an omer. And so he estimated how much an omer was and how many omers each person was supposed to have. And so he would go out every day from his room and bring a little scale or a little measuring container which contained as much as he was supposed to eat for that breakfast. So he'd go into the cafeteria and let's say, you know, this was his omer, and he'd fill it up with that much food, and he'd sit down and he would eat this amount of food.
Eat his
omer. And when he got done, he was a big fellow, and he thought, I'm still a little bit hungry. So he'd go back and he'd borrow some of his omer for lunch and eat the rest of it for breakfast. Then he got there at lunchtime. Well, he didn't have quite as much in his omer scale, so he filled it up to that much he was allowed to have, and he ate that, and he was still a little bit hungry.
So I know what he did. He must have borrowed from tomorrow, did he?
Tomorrow morning's breakfast, that's right. And in a couple of days, he had nothing for the next meal, and he finally gave up on this. And so, you know, what I've always been told, the best amount of food is enough food to maintain your weight as long as your weight is right. I like another quote. I was over in Europe recently, and someone asked me a question about, well, but I like this, I like that. And I says, well, I just want you to read in, let's see, it's in Proverbs 23, verse 2, and put a knife to your throat if you be a man given to appetite. But it's interesting, it follows verse 1, when thou sits and eats with a ruler, consider diligently what is before you. It takes my mind to a man named Thomas Parr. Ever heard of Thomas Parr?
Don't think so.
Well, there was a book written about him called The Old, Very Old Thomas Parr. This man was born in 1483. He lived to the reigns of 10 monarchs, kings and queens. He lived to be, I think it was 153 years and 9 months of age. He was a farmer. He ate very simple food. Maybe one of the secrets to his longevity is he got married the first time at age 80. But sorry about that. Anyway, he went on through his life. He had married twice. The second time he was married in his 120s. He fathered a child at 100. He was cooking along really well. I mean, the guy was doing great.
Sounds as if he had a strong constitution and was taking care of it.
This was his, you know, every time someone dies, No, I'm sorry. Every time someone lives to 100, they interview them saying, sir, what's your secret for longevity? And they put the microphone in his mouth, and he might say, you know, this or that. Sometimes they say, well, I only smoked hand-rolled cigarettes. And people think, well, if I smoke hand-rolled cigarettes, that'll be my key. Well, this was his secret, and he really did live to a long life. Here it is. Keep your head cool by temperance, your feet warm by exercise. Rise early, go to bed soon, and if you want to grow fat or prosperous, keep your eyes open and your mouth shut. So anyway,
good advice.
He's living a great life. He's an old man, but he's not really that old. I mean, I've seen his death mask, the painting and the mask they made of him upon his death, and he looks like a young compared to our old age now. He did not have gray hair. But the earl over the estate where this old man worked discovered this man. He says, oh, King Charles has to meet him, because it was during King Charles' reign. So he takes him to meet King Charles. Can you imagine? You've got a man here who's 152, 153 years of age, who has lived through 10 monarchs. He's got a good memory. He's very lively. He's got lots of health. He regaled the entire king's court with his stories and with his anecdotes. And the king says, oh, come live with me. Eat at my table. We really want you here. And the guy says, that sounds like a super idea. He moved in with the king, should have read Proverbs 23, verse 1. Within 2 weeks, he was dead.
Oh.
Upon autopsy, they found that he had the digestive tract of a young man.
What do you know?
There's the key, is how well we take care of this digestive tract. But that young digestive tract was in a severe state of inflammation. The rich foods of the king's table killed him in 2 weeks, what it took brown bread and the simple things he ate, potatoes, for 152, 153 years to do. And it couldn't kill him. So important to eat simple foods.
Absolutely. Simple foods, that's simplicity is one of the great keys of life. Now I have, thank you so much for this good thought. Have a few things that I'd like to bring you about how to live healthfully, and one is about blueberries. I have a little blueberry patch myself, and I invite my friends and neighbors and just people I meet on the street to bring a bucket and pick blueberries at blueberry time, and I tell them this, that blueberries will be good for their eyes. Blueberries will help them to live into advanced old age. Blueberries will help to reduce the cholesterol levels. It will keep the bladder healthy because it has a substance in it that prevents germs from being able to get their colonization activities into high gear. It helps against glaucoma and against cataracts. So with such good recommendations for blueberries, I can recommend them wholeheartedly to you.